Have you ever wanted a build that cripples, disables, and jams skills at will, with the result granting you a whopping 38% weapon damage? Well, ladies and gentlemen, I have just the build for you, the Saboteur. Pretty much defined as a person engaging in sabotage. The perfect PvPvE build, and one that so many hate, even NPCs.
Oh my god, bro. Are you serious with this armor? Don't you realize that in PvP you're not going to survive with that kind of armor? It doesn't matter what you do, man. There you are. Sir. No, sir. Not getting me. Give me that. Better put that away. I see you, bro. Come on. That one. Let's go.
With this build, you can play either role, support or DPS. The versatility of this is mind-blowing, and for a game like The Division 2, it's pretty much a necessity to have in your arsenal. So, if you're interested in builds from DPS all the way to skill, then don't hesitate to like the video and subscribe for more. Now let's not waste any more time and get straight into this. Alright, what's going on, y'all? It's been a little while. I wanted to bring this out earlier, but I've been doing tons of things. But finally the build is here, the Saboteur. And I'm pretty excited about this because this can be used in Legendary, it can be used in PvP as you saw, and it can be used in Heroic. So those are the type of builds I usually like to make. And I had to resurrect the Savage Wolverine, man. This gun was popularized a long time ago based on just the fact that it was named Wolverine. Of course, we know the reference of Wolverine from X-Men. People were putting all kinds of thumbnails with Wolverine on the cover and all of that. But the talent itself isn't really something that's easy to use in general. People don't like being close overall. So I put like a little spin on this build, and I think you're going to like it. Here's what I got. Okay, this build is neither skill or DPS. It's the middle ground. So you can deal with whatever based on the skill tiers that I have and the weapon damage that I have. Normally, I like to go with 5 skill tiers, but it's okay. I wanted to be a little bit on the DPS side more so than skill, but you have enough to overpower most people because most people don't use more than 2 skill tiers, period. Because by default, they have the Picaro's holster, which gives you a skill tier. Sometimes they're using technician. So by default, most people will have like 2 skill tiers. So anybody who you go against, you'll be able to disable their skills. So the purpose of this is basically to resurrect an old build that I made a long time ago called the Disruptor, which was one of my favorites. It was a fan favorite. I remade it a couple times, and this is pretty much the 3rd installment, but I didn't want to call it the Disruptor again, so I figured I'll call it the Saboteur. Let's start out with the specialization. I'm using Technician, and of course, to get hybrid builds, you want to have a certain amount of skill tiers. This setup allows me to have 4 skill tiers for free. I have the Ninja Bike Backpack, I have the Technician Specialization, the Picaro's holster, and Palisade still works. Okay, this is part of the formula. Before, I told you that you can make any gear set a 5-5 hybrid, but you can do it also with brand sets, and this is a perfect example. This is the first build that I made with it. But Technician Specialization is one of the specializations that allows for you to excel in legendary content. I say this all the time. It deals extra damage to robotics and skill proxies, and it also gives you what you need to activate the chest piece talent that I have. Let's look at this weapon. It's called the Savage Wolverine. It's a named weapon. You could actually craft this at the base of operations. It's very easy to get. And the thing about assault rifles is that this is why I'm so stuck with using the capacitor, because look at this. Damage to targets out of cover and damage to armor. innocent assault rifle. You see this right here? You can't get this with any other assault rifle, which is why the capacitor is so special. I know you guys seen so many people posting builds with the capacitor, even if it's not a skill build or hybrid. People are using this with a DPS build, and I'm using this for my secondary just because it just makes sense. I mean, look, I only have 4 skill tiers, right? Let me get to it in a second, but here's a Savage Wolverine. It has health damage, which is also great. Don't sleep on health damage, because you got mini tanks, you have chungas, you have robotic dogs and legendary, wherein all they have is health. So health damage is very effective in all forms of content. That's one thing that this has that the capacitor doesn't, right? Then I have damage to targets out of cover, of course. So just roll this until you get these stats and you should be good. It's called perfectly close and personal. Killing a target within 7 meters grants 38% weapon damage. That is a ton. Now you may be thinking, I'm not about to get within 7 meters, right? I get it, okay? It's not really smart to do that unless you have like 2 million armor and a whole bunch of armor regen and unbreakable, whatever. You know, on top of that, you have to kill an individual first, right? Kill a target. This target right here doesn't discriminate. This is the secret sauce that I was talking about. And I spoke about this in my I bet you didn't know tips. If you didn't see that video, check it out. It has some really good beginner to advanced tips that give you the edge in combat. But anyways, this was in that video and I was discussing why this is important. Because if you have like a build like this and you're able to jam skills at will, anything that gets within 7 meters of you, it doesn't even have to be a person. It doesn't have to be an agent or anything. It can be a skill. So all the time you see the snipers decoys coming up to you with their little insignificant shock, or you have the drone operators, or you have turrets. You have all kind of skills like the hyenas, who their operator sends her little RC car, the explosion, or the other faction that sends that little thing that has the saw blades on it. Anything that gets within 7 meters of you, once you destroy that skill, you retain that 38% weapon damage buff. That's why I said certain builds are better in legendary than they are in heroic, because this is prime for legendary. I think I haven't even used it there, but just based on my experience playing the game, I know that this will perform really well. I have the Savage Wolverine with damage to health. I can jam any of these skills at will. The cooldowns on these skills are relatively low, 25 seconds for each, so that's pretty much nothing. You can alternate between these two to jam whatever comes near your way. So this is primed for you to deal that damage consistently, because this has no cooldown, right? It says 38% weapon damage for 10 seconds. Once that 10 seconds is over with, you can reapply it right away. My secondary is the capacitor, like I was saying. Now, this is crazy. The way that this works is that shooting enemies builds stacks to a cap of 40. And of course, this is 2 assault rifles, so I'm not really going to have that much ammo. So you got to kind of be careful when you're using this. But you're dealing a lot of damage, so I wouldn't really worry about it as much. But the way that this works is that you shoot enemies and it builds stacks up to 40. Each stack grants 1.5% weapon damage after 5 seconds, stacks decay. And you get 7.5% weapon damage for each skill tier. So I have 4, right? So that means I'm getting what? 30% weapon damage with this. And this has 5 weapon cores. So I'm getting the damage with the weapon cores with a capacitor and the damage from the skill tiers. This is insane. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, 5 weapon cores, which is cool. I wanted to be a little bit tanky. I'm at 1.3 million armor, which is perfect for this, because I'm using for the chest piece talent, which is a Fenris, to give me the 10% assault rifle damage. I'm able to get that because I'm using the Ninja Bike backpack. So everything on this build, I get a second piece for, since that's what the Ninja Bike gives me for its exotic. Man, I love this backpack. It grew on me so quick, so fast, especially since this is the age of the hybrids. But anyway, this chest piece is great. And look at this. 30% reload speed. That is insane. You know how much that is? I mean, usually with assault rifles, their reload is relatively slow, below LMGs. With this, I'm reloading instantly. That's the thing I love about what they did with the update when they changed the second and third attributes. It gives you an incentive to use the Ninja Bike over some of these other backpacks that offer vigilance, versatile, whatever. You have a reason to use the Ninja Bike, and you better use it. And this is why I have 1.3 million armor, because usually in PvP, I like to use unbreakable just so I can survive a bit more. But this adds another layer of damage onto perfectly close and personal. 38% weapon damage, right? It said, what does it say? Add, right? It doesn't say multiply, right? Okay, it grants plus 38% weapon damage. So that's not multiplicative. But the beauty of Spotter is that this amplifies your total weapon and skill damage by 15% to pulsed enemies. So this is going to amplify that 38% or whatever other damage is added onto my build. Okay, and remember, it says weapon and skill damage, so I'm using the pulse, the jammer pulse. This deals damage to robotics and skill proxies, extra damage in fact because of technician, but this increases that damage as well. Not going to do any damage to players or enemies or whatever, but their skills is going to deal extra damage to, right? Okay, and this is how I'm able to get 4 skill tiers. I have 2-piece Palisade still works, which gives you some survivability with 10% armor on kill, 60% health, and that extra skill tier that you always want. Also the Piccaro's holster, roll to armor, critical hit chance. Now I said this before, okay, if you can't get the maximum amount of critical hit damage, then make sure you try and max out your critical hit chance as much as possible, which is why I have crit chance on every piece. Status effects, I don't really go for that much anymore because status effects have been nerfed. They have diminishing returns. I can tell you in another build that I'm about to come out with what the way is to go now when it comes to skills, because before, for a long time, it was status effects. Bleed hives. I mean, bleed hives are still good, but as the matches go on, that diminishing returns kicks in and it's not really as effective. I actually felt this. So it's really something else that is pretty broken when it comes to skills, and I'm going to let you guys know that soon enough. But anyways, I have 𝐵𝒄𝒄 gloves simply because I wanted to get more critical hit damage. With one piece, you'll get what, 12%, 15%. So you can get up to 27% critical hit damage with that one piece alone. Okay, and of course the Piccaro's holster, like I said before, it gives me a weapon damage core and attribute of my choosing. So the attribute composition you want is critical hit chance first, then damage, or if you want skill damage. But I wanted to do a little bit more weapon damage, like I said, in this build. Now you see the skills that I'm using is the EMP sticky bomb. You can quick shoot this so that you won't have to stand up and aim. This was also in my I Bet You Didn't Know tips video. Check that out, where I talked about the quick use of skills and how effective that is, how it can give you the competitive advantage in so many situations. And with this, you can tag this on enemies like robot dogs, and this will down them. Don't detonate it, because once you shoot this on an enemy, the status effect automatically applies without you detonating it. So you can use this twice essentially before that meter goes down while this is on the enemy. Then use it again before they get up, and you're good to go. And as I said, the jammer pulse. This right here is great. Everybody uses skills no matter what. You're just going to have more formidable skills, and you're going to be able to jam their skills. You're always going to see somebody who has a defender drone, which is really good for DPS players or tank players or whatever. You got people who run bleed hives, whatever. You'll be able to handle all of that stuff, and they won't. So this gives you the advantage to either pulse them and get 15% weapon damage, multiplicative, or once you destroy their skills, you get on top of that close and personal. So I really love this build. Let me show you the stats. The critical hit chance and damage is decent, and that's because this build is not catered towards that ultimately. I don't have critical hit chance and damage pieces of gear like Providence or 𝐤𝐵𝐵. All I have is 𝐵𝒄𝒄, and this is enough damage, as you can see, against the enemy. I don't need much with this because you're doing so many other things. This build has a lot of utility, and that's usually how I love to use them. And for my pistol, I'm just using the Technician Specialization pistol, known as the Maxim 9. It has perfect spike, headshots grant 25% skill damage. I don't really use that. You can decide if you want to use the orbit or something, which will give you more crit with perfect finisher. Other than that, that's it for this build. Let me know what you think about it down below in the comment section. This is one of my favorite types of builds because it's like, it's all around, man, and it's pretty much a counter for everything. Have you made a build like this? Let me know down in the comment section below. Like the video if you liked it, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel for builds from DPS all the way to skill. I'll see you in the next one. Be right out.